Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host 𝙒𝙗𝙧𝙤. Because of some technical difficulties, our guest of the evening, 𝙒𝑚𝑟 Venkatesh, is unable to join us. So we will reschedule that live hangout at a different time. But today I wanted to talk to all of you about the recently concluded Municipal Corporation of Delhi elections. The BJP has lost. They have been in power for 15 years. And many people say that, oh, well, they put up a very good fight. They got 100 plus seats and so on and so forth. But if you look at the underlying challenge that Delhi has had for many years, people have really not done anything about how life goes along. If anything, after Corona, things have gotten worse. And if you remember our conversations with Sri 𝙒𝙗𝙪𝙤𝙪, he has been saying how the people from Uttar Pradesh or Bihar, they walk back home, leaving the space for somebody else to occupy. And I don't have to tell you who has occupied that space. Your street vendors, your chai stalls, your puncture shops, everything now has gone one direction only. And you'll be amazed to see how many candidates won for Aam Aadmi Party belonging to the minority community. It's disproportionately high. And how do you explain such things? What was BJP doing for 15 years? Every time there are elections, all BJP will say is, oh, we will regularize your housing. We'll build you new houses. It's not possible. It is just not possible. And Delhi has become a huge slum. If you look at some areas, except for South Delhi, where Gurugram and the IT sector has picked up, the rest of Delhi doesn't look that clean. In fact, you go around Delhi, the NDMC area, which is where the parliament and all the bungalows of all the ministers and senior government officials is located, that looks like a first world. But go 1-2 streets away from there and you will start seeing all sorts of garbage. The place looks totally different, 180-degree difference in experience. And what was the Municipal Corporation of Delhi doing? They've been in power for 15 years. They had center at the they had their own party at the center. What have they done? And what about the leadership of the local area of Delhi itself? In 2015, if you remember, the first time that Arvind Kejriwal came to power as chief minister, he did it opposing Congress before the election, and then he does a coalition with them. He's in power for 49 days, and then I think either he resigns or the Constituent Assembly is dissolved, and then for several months, nothing happened. They should have had elections almost immediately. Instead, what the BJP did, they took out a reasonably well-performing Dr. Harshvardhan, and they parachuted in somebody who has not really worked on the ground. That is Miss Kiran Bedi, and got 67 seats. See, this is a huge problem. Now, what Municipal Corporation of Delhi is going to see is that it's as if the population of Delhi has told the Aam Aadmi Party, you can have petrol bombs, you can have acid bombs, you can have incendiary stuff, you can have guns, you can have your party members egging their own to go and attack the majority, which will be silent anyway, and he'll take it in the chin, and then come back to vote for you if you throw them some breadcrumbs, 2,000 rupees, 1,500 rupees, whatever. It's not as if the BJP doesn't do it. They also do it. In fact, you are seeing some videos now doing the rounds, whether it is Gujarat or Himachal Pradesh or some other place. So somewhere the governance has gone. Just give me 1 second. Sir, can you join, sir? Yeah, can you join, sir? Yeah. Please join me in 5 minutes. I've sent you the link and it's all on WhatsApp. Yeah, thank you. Good news, guys. Sri MRV will be joining us in a few minutes. So before that, let me just finish my rant on MCD. The Municipal Corporation of Delhi is essentially a corrupt body. And I remember the first time that they went to election, that is AAP fought elections, I remember being in Delhi And one of the local people was telling me, sir, even then it was the BJP that was in power in MCD. He said, this is like, I'm talking about 2015 time frame. He said that the Municipal Corporation of Delhi is one of the most corrupt bodies, that this will reflect badly on BJP. And that's exactly what happened. BJP was the one who opened the door for Arvind Kejriwal to get in. What kind of nonsense does the Prime Minister keep saying that he's going to give corruption-free sarkar, when right under his nose in Municipal Corporation of Delhi, there is so much corruption? I mean, it's unbelievable some of the things that these people do. And governance has gone, remember the Delhi riots, the Shaheen Bagh riots, the farmer riots, everything happens in Delhi, and you just let them do it. So how much is the average Hindu going to take, that you will heap abuses on him? In that, Shaheen Bagh was one of the worst protests, because it clogged up an arterial highway in Delhi. MRV is joining us in just a minute, so let me finish what I was going to say. So this is a systemic problem. Delhi lacks local leadership. Every Delhi leader aspires to be on the central cabinet. They don't really care much for doing some work at the ground level. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Dr. Harshvardhan would have been happier just running Delhi as a CM rather than becoming the health minister. Then COVID goes wrong. Well, it wasn't going to be easy to manage that, and somebody had to be scapegoated, and it happens to be him because he's the health minister. He's out, and now I don't know where he is. There's no ata, no pata. See, even if there is some good, genuine leaders, the top two don't seem to want to give oxygen to anybody else. Any well-performing person is looked down upon. I mean, how are you going to run the country? How many things can the two people do in the country? I mean, this is the big, big fear. I mean, I fear for the country. If one of them, God forbid, falls sick, then, the decision-making will come to an absolute standstill. This is the kind of situation that we are dealing with right now in Delhi. This Delhi, I mean by the capital of India. And you can go on and on and on and on about, how there is, BJP has put up a very creditable performance. No. If they had done their job, if the MCD had done their job, they would have come back to power. It is just that these guys are corrupt up to their eyeballs. And these are all BJP people. So next time somebody tells you that this is a party with a difference, that this is a clean party, just show them the mirror and say, what did you do in MCD for 15 years? How come you could not do a single regularization properly done? 30 to 40% of the jhopatpattis are all illegals. Why couldn't the MCD clean up that stuff? They would have won hands down. There, Dr. M.R. Venkatesh joins us. Dr. M.R.V., namaskaram and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram.
Viewers, I'm sorry, we'll get back to regular programming now. Thank you so much, Dr. M.R.V., for not giving up. And despite all the technical challenges, you made it, sir. So, viewers, I'll take some questions on the MCD debacle, but that can wait after the main topic, which is Dr. M.R.V.'s new book that he is writing, Discovery of Bharat. He has borrowed liberally from Jawaharlal Nehru's Discovery of India. I will say it out in the front. There's nothing wrong in that. If you say it out that you are inspired from something else, no problem. It's just when you try to hide it that it's a problem. And he's also suggesting that the Constitution ought to be revisited. You all would have seen Professor Gautam Desiraju's book, Bharat India 2.0, and he was on PGurus channel. We talked about his book also, again, how the Constitution needs to be revisited. So, MRV, without further ado, I've been talking for about 10 minutes non-stop, sir. And I'm not used to talking for 10 minutes. I'm only used to asking one small question and listening to the speaker. So I leave it to you. You can take this topic and tell us why you felt the need for this book.
Okay, when I finished my previous one, Retaining Balance, I ended it in an open-ended manner. And I felt there was a vacuum inside. And Ratan Sardaji was the first one to point out that you have not concluded the book. I said, when I did this after 4 years of research, I was too tired also. At some point of time, you have to do it. And as you said, rightly said, Bahubali Part 1, who killed Katappa? You end it that way. You give also a chance to recoup and write a better one in the second half. So that way I thought, let me do it, because one thing was certain when I did my book, Retaining Balance, that there was a huge vacuum in our socio-economic political thought. I have no doubts about it. The constitution was hastily made, borrowed from various constitutions from so many other countries. Like the Rigveda would say, let the noble thoughts flow from all sides. Provided, people forget it, provided it is a noble thought. Rigveda never said ignoble thoughts can flow from all sides. It only said, okay, noble thoughts must flow. So the test was whether it was noble or not. And nobody tested it. And there was also a good reason. And the reason was that if you look at it, if you see that Theodore 𝙒𝙪𝙤𝙯, there is a wonderful American Jew who made a wonderful observation in a book called Lokmanya. And he says, it is the most un-Indian constitution that you ever made. And that in 1956, an American Jew, when talking about Lokmanya, says the whole idea of independence movement was Swarajya. Swarajya doesn't only mean political liberation, it also means individual emancipation. So you have a totally different objective of life. Indians have a totally different objectives in life. And it is not merely materialistic, it is spiritual. And you have to see that the constitution is right-sized, the state is right-sized, to see that the objectives of the state and objectives of the individuals are coalesced at some level. And he says that somewhere down the line, I can agree, in 1940s, between furthering the chaos and preserving a dilapidated order, you chose the latter because of the compulsions of the day. You had a partition, it was a bloody partition, you didn't know what to do, you had some 500 odd princely states, then you had a state called Kashmir created, a new problem created by Nehru himself. So many problems were there. So Theodore 𝙒𝙯𝙯 concedes in 1947 to 1949, you had no other alternative but to continue with the existing order. And that order is nothing but preserving the 1935 Government of India Act. Let us not make a fool of ourselves by saying that the founding fathers did a great original work. The 1935 Act was redrafted by one Mr. Rao, who was the secretary of this Constituent Assembly, and he drafted the whole thing within a month. The debate took over 4 years. That is entirely different, almost 47, 48 months. But the core of the issue was encompassed in the 1935 Government of India Act. Now, when you come to the Constitution per se, it is like a Hollywood movie with a mother and a sister character being shown as a Tamil movie or a Hindi movie, with virtually the same type of action scenes and everything. So the Constitution suffers from what I call lack of Indianness from the civilizational front. It is basically Greco-Roman in character. In genetic quality, it is Greco-Roman because it is mirrored on what it is on the American Constitution. It borrows liberally from the American Constitution. It says, we the people of India. And it takes 3 words from the French Constitution, which is liberty, equality, and fraternity. So you have all sorts of assortments taken out, like the head of a horse, body of a cockroach, the tail of an elephant. Then you say that we have created a wonderful constitution. We have not created a wonderful constitution. We have created a hydra-headed monster. And that has been very un-Indian in its character. So we need to go to the root assumptions. Now 75 years have elapsed. We need to rediscover ourselves and ask ourselves this question, that is it okay for us to run the next 75, 100 years with the same constitution? The answer would be an emphatic no. And we would have to revisit the constitution right from the day one as to what it is. So for these reasons, I thought we should revisit the constitution. And that is why this constitution should be more of Bharat and less of India. It is not that it should do away with India. We should have less of India, more of Bharat. And when that is why the name of the book is Discovery of Bharat.
Dr. MRV, I think it was in 2018, I had a chance to spend a few hours with Padma Bhushan awardee Dr. Nagaswamy. In fact, there is one or two interviews that I did of him that are also on PGurus, where he talked about India going back to looking at what its own Vedas said, what its own Upanishads said about how a country should be, how it should be governed. Even Arthashastra has some points on this. And that's what should be the founding basis for the constitution. However, he didn't write a book on that. He was busy writing other things. But it struck a chord in my head that Indian constitution, you forgot to mention about Ireland, sir. They took all this denomination nonsense from there.
Yes. See, there are so many nonsense. In fact, I was researching and I was shell-shocked to know that the UN has got 5 permanent members. In the Article 23 of the UN Charter, the Security Council has got 5 permanent members. The British, the French, the American, the Chinese, and the Russian. Previously, it was the Soviet Russia. Now it is Russia. Now, all these 5 guys have some sort of revolution to their name. Okay. Unless you have a bloody past, you couldn't qualify to become the permanent member of this council. But of the 5, let us take 2, the American and the French. Now, when we say the Western civilization, we tend to include both French Revolution and the American Revolution, and think that both America and France would share the same concerns or civilizational values. But I will say this with some authority. There is a fantastic book which I was reading this morning called Magna Carta of Christianity. And there they point out, author 𝙒𝙗𝙤𝙤 Guinness points out a very interesting thing, that in American Constitution, which was arising out of the American Revolution in 1776 and the French Revolution 13 years later in 1789, are in conflict with each other in terms of their aims, objectives, what it should be. In America, the objective is to give liberty to the individual and protect him from the state. State is a necessary evil. In the sense, state is necessary, but it will have its own evil consequences. So you will have to protect the individual, and the individual is paramount. The individual liberty is paramount. So you start giving all sorts of respect to that. And there will be, the state is basically a balancer of conflicting interests. You will have, as an American citizen, an interest. I will have an interest and could be in conflict. And the state is supposed to be a balancer. Whereas in French constitution, the state is an enabler. So there are 2 different views of how to view the state itself. But we borrowed from the French, we also borrowed from the American, and we made a hash of it. So we borrowed something from the American, we the people, and we said fraternity, fraternity, I think
Egalitarian.
Equality, fraternity, and one more thing came, equality, fraternity, and one more thing comes from the French. And they put a hash of it and they say, okay, we will take the best of everything. But sadly, Nehru and company, when they start looking at it, and in fact, I suffer from a phobia called fear of Friday the 13th. And this is the day, it is equality, fraternity, and liberty. Somebody is pointing out. Thank you very much. Now, on Friday the 13th, December 1946, Nehru moves the aims and objectives resolution. Now, Mr. Iyer, you will understand, in 1946 December, the nation has not yet been partitioned. People in the Constituent Assembly have gathered on 9th December, and 5 days later, on 13th December, Nehru moves the aims and objectives of the Constitution. People are still besieging the Muslim League to join. And they say, let us not do with partition, let us go ahead. Partition is still months away. Nehru puts in 8 points. The third point is that there will be enough safeguard for minorities. And that day, secularism was born in this country. And second, though it is not explicitly stated in the aims and objectives of the resolution, Nehru says we are a socialist country. We should be a socialist country. And Nehru goes ahead and even says that I want the world to be a socialist one. And on that day, both socialism and secularism came into our political lexicon. Never mind, it came into the constitution several years later. It was smuggled into the constitution during the emergency. That's an entirely different debate. But characteristically, socialism and secularism were drawn into the constitution. And there were people of great eminence who did not question Nehru, and it was allowed to pass till probably November 15th, 1948, when Ambedkar was now brought into the whole scheme of things. And Ambedkar opposes Nehru on the issue of socialism. He says we cannot draw an economic policy for all time to come, and we should leave it to the generation of the day to decide what they have to do and what they should do in terms of economic policy. But even then, we became a socialist state. Even then, we became a socialist country. And the paramount idea was there will be a Hindu majority, there will be a non-Hindu minority. The vast Hindu majority will be tyrannical towards the minority community. And the minority community, which has ruled us for the last 1,000 years, will now suddenly, out of power, will not have the necessary state instrumentalities to protect themselves. So it is enjoined on the state, the newly formed government of India, and its instrumentalities to protect the minorities. So you see, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the constitution started leaning towards the minorities right from day one, which is even prior to our independence. Now the question is, did Nehru had a clairvoyance in 1946 December to believe that this country will be partitioned? And if it is partitioned, the entire Muslim community will not leave India. There will be a large number of Muslims who will settle in India. And he designed something like making us into believe or conjuring an idea that the Hindu majority will be tyrannical and they will somehow or the other unleash the 1,000-year war on the hapless minority, and the constitution and the state has to protect. This was the broad idea with which the constitution was built. And this is your secularism. This is your secularism. So in this, Para 8 does make a lip service towards the civilization, restoring civilizational values. Apart from this, there is nothing in the constitution, apart from Article 25 and 26, which is subject to public order, morality, everything, that you can practice and profess your faith. And this, unfortunately, has been the bane of Indian secularism. It has been anti-Hindu, it is anti-majority, decisively pro-minority. Decidedly, the state instrumentalities have been designed to ensure that they favor the minorities, and there is a tacit understanding or an implicit understanding that the majority will be tyrannical. And all these are embedded in our constitution. Now, to me, this constitution therefore requires a complete relook right from the first stone, the Bunyadi stone, as they would say in Hindi, is skewed. It has been kept in a very wrong manner. And since you had the edifice on a wrong foundation stone, you ended up with this hydra-headed monster. Instead, I think the constitution must be shortened. It should be made sweet. It should be made simple. Instead of arguing about equality, or about justice, about fraternity, about so many other things, we need to say we are a civilization state and we will uphold dharma. The preamble can be need not be loquacious. It can be short. It can be like what you do in your questioning, a few words of questioning and keep quiet. And the preamble can be like that. Take inspiration from PGurus and be short and sweet. Instead, we have a 84-word or 83-word preamble, which meanders into nothing. We say we'll do this, we'll do that, and look at it. How can you have equality and also justice. You explain to me. How can you have equality and justice? You can either have justice or equality. If I do equality, which is what we finally found out to ourselves, that it is far more important to give justice. Otherwise, we wouldn't have reservation. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done so many other things that we wanted to do. Equality is something that is antithesis of justice. Likewise, you have a country in which you pass a law and say Places of Worship Act, which is basically an affront on the civilization. You say we will cease to be Bharat right from 1947 up to 1947. All our history is vanished. So rebuilding of history, rebuilding our civilization, establishing our civilizational order is no longer possible because of the Places of Worship Act. And that is because you don't have a specific constitutional mandate to do what you're supposed to do.
Simplification is a definite welcome step, MRV. But let me take you back to, say, the time when there was a referendum throughout United India about whether it should be partitioned. Not everyone had a vote at that point of time, did they?
They didn't have. They didn't have. In fact, the Constituent Assembly debates and the Constitution itself has not been ratified. Where is it got the stamp of the people? We the people never voted for this Constitution. Let us be clear. It is 300 people who came together in the Constituent Assembly, out of which majority of them were absent right through. Even on the date on which I am talking about, 13th December 1946, Nehru laments that I am passing a very important resolution, the house is empty. And only 300 people, many of whom did not understand, and those who understood were lackeys of Nehru or were lawyers, were the people who went on to create this constitution. And this has become, and secularism has become the state religion of this country. So it is not Islam, it is not Muslim, Hinduism, it is not Christianity, it is secularism. And secularism, as I defined, it is basically anti-Hindu, pro-minority, defined by the Constitution.
Dr. MRV, if you go back and look at 1947, the divided India, August 15th, 1947, the minorities were no more than, I'm talking about those who are not Hindus, which means I'm including the Sikhs and the Jains and everybody else, just the minorities who chose to stay back. I think it was less than 10%. And they got so much. Now they are now close to 18%. Their growth has been fantastic. One wishes that the Indian economy grows like the way the population of the minorities grows. But today, do you think people will even allow you to change a comma or a period, leave alone the Constitution?
See, it is not an easy task. Nation building is never an easy task, like asking questions in PGurus channel. It is as difficult as answering in PGurus channel. So you will have to bear the pain, and we postponed the pain in 1947. See, whenever you postpone a minor surgery, you end up with a major surgery or a far greater disaster at the later stage. It is time now. See, we have stabilized ourselves. We have got a robust government working. Growth is more than 6% for last 30-40 years. We have got institutions working. We have combined modern. We have been able to absorb modernity. We have been able to absorb many of the Western civil institutions easily. We have a rule of law. We have parliament which is functional. We have an election commission which is functional. We have courts which are functional 182 days out of 365 days. That's okay. But by and large, we are a functional democracy in any Western standards, any comparable Western standards. We have a reasonably good media. We have proliferation of intellectuals, and we can. It's the time that we take this risk and take a plunge. And this plunge need not be taken in one shot. We can be taking over 25 years. We can identify issues after issues and probably put in a chain of events that if we achieve this, we do the next one. Do this, we'll do the next one. Now there will be, I will tell you, it is not a problem with Muslims or Christians or any of the minorities. The problem is with our intellectuals and liberals. The problem is liberals believe that they are God sent to this country to save Muslims from Hindus. It is the same Nehruvian thought that manifested on 13th December 1946. That somehow or the other we have to protect the minorities. Who the hell are you to protect the minorities? Why the hell should you protect the minorities? We, the people of India, will protect ourselves, whether it is Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or come by what denomination. But doesn't mean that we should be woke enough to create this multiculturalism of the West, especially Europe.
Yes,
We can
indeed.
have, no, let me complete this 1 second. I
Sorry,
said we
go
can
ahead.
have a 25-year period coinciding with the 100th year. We can introduce certain changes to the constitution and also debate extensively on what are the contours of the new constitution. See, it is very easy to criticize this constitution. It's very tough to come about with a constitution as an alternative. It may take 10, 12, 15 years to write a constitution of a country of our complexity. Probably we may have to decide upon the type of districts that we need to have. How do we organize districts? How do we organize state? Is it on linguistic basis? What is the language to be adopted? How should we adopt language? How are the languages to be spoken in the court? What is the language to be spoken in the court? All these things have to be decided, and several minute things have to be planned. It will take time, and it involves greater amount of debate. And being a debating society, I think we are eminently capable of finding out an answer. Let us not delude ourselves and saying that, oh, we can't do it. We can do it, and we can do a much better work than the Constituent Assembly, which gave us a wonderful constitution in 1950. We think, but unfortunately, shelf life is over. We need to revisit the subject.
See, unless you understand what was the weakness, you will not be able to set right that. And
Correct.
do you think there was a big factor that was fatigue from fighting for independence, so that when the senior leaders, like for example Mahatma Gandhi or Ambedkar or Rajaji,
Patel,
were they
Rajaji,
too tired? Do you think?
yes. I will say that we were not only tired. Probably there are two theories. Intellectually, all these people in the prime of the youth had spent a good portion of their life in prison.
Yes.
Many of them were fatigued, and many of them did not have the necessary energy levels that was required to draft a new constitution. Having said this, if you look into the Constituent Assembly debates and other things, it revolves around two characters, Nehru and Ambedkar. And virtually it is their ideology or understanding of India that manifests itself as constitution. For example, Savarkar never figures here.
Yes.
For example, Gandhiji, though from 1946 the Constitution Assembly starts debating and he is assassinated end of January of 1948. So he had around 14 months. And some people go and ask him, what about your Gram Rajya and other things that you were so eloquently talking about? Gandhiji says, oh, are they not discussing all these things in the Constituent Assembly? He is taken aback. He's become politically irrelevant by 1947. And people like Rajendra Prasad, people like Rajaji, who had more library in their head than any other people in the entire world, probably did not contribute so much. As you said, it is fatigue. The other theory that I have is that right from 20s, or even earlier, even the formation of the Congress, the British knew at some point of time they have to vacate this place. They are tenants at best. They are not landlords. They cultivated people, and those people are the people who ended up writing the Constitution of India, notably people like Nehru and others. And they are the people who championed ideas like secularism, ideas like minority rights, ideas like socialism. And these are the thoughts that have been implanted in these people. And these people were called moderates. And people like Bose, people like Savarkar, people like Tilak, all these people were Lala Lajpat Rai, all these people were either attacked, jailed, exterminated, or made a political pariah. So you see, this is a very, very unfortunate scenario.
So true, sir. And we can go on and on because I go back to those days because I've heard a lot of stories about what played out in the days and weeks leading up to the independence and so on and so forth. We can always think about it, but we have to understand that the political leadership of India was immature because, like you said, everybody had socialistic dreams. Even if Subhash Chandra Bose had become prime minister, he would have been no less socialist than
Yes,
Nehru. Please get that in your mind, guys. He was
yes,
also a
yes,
socialist. The only person who would have truly reflected the basic guy and the ground was Sardar Patel. And for
yes.
some reason, which I can't, well, I know the reason, I can't tell you outside, Gandhi preferred Nehru. Let's leave it at that. There was a big weakness there, and let's leave it at that. Dr. MRV, shall we take some questions, sir?
Yes.
Hashtag Ask MRV is the hashtag you need to use. I'm sure you've been seeing the data streaming, so please go ahead and let's start having some questions now. Mr. Lee wants to know, what Dharma Shastras do you propose as a foundational model for new constitution of Bharat? As per John Barker in the message and the book, there were around 18 to 36 Dharma Shastras in ancient India.
See, I'm not an expert on Dharma Shastras. First, let me confess that. And two, we should get experts on Dharma Shastras. In fact, I was reading a book about Dharma Shastra in public life by one Iyengar in 1941, published by the Adyar Library in Chennai. Probably one of the finest books that you will ever come across on Dharma Shastra in public life in India. There are so many people who have done so much work. Only thing is we have to get the consensus in order. It is not that what I say or you say is right. It must appeal to a vast majority. We must sell this idea. We must take to the people, including those who may be, getting a bit of worry about what could be the future, what could the future hold for them. I think we have a moral responsibility of assuaging their fears, but at the same time, we should not be leaning towards something like safeguarding minorities and other things. All these utopian ideas we should be done away with, and we should have a very, very wide-ranging debate and come to some sort of a conclusion. And probably revisiting constitution must be the subject of a debate in 500 different universities across India. Who knows which student will come out with some wonderful idea. University lawyers, you can have trade and chambers of commerce, universities, several places we can have. We can have debates all across and find out what it takes to write a new constitution. And even the new constitution, when we write, we must also say that it comes with a shelf life and it will collapse in the next 50 years after it is actually brought in. So that the newer generation after that will be compelled to relook at the whole thing de novo. It is like rebooting a machine, resetting a machine after 50 years. We should say, civilizationally, we don't believe in something cast in stone. We believe in reordering the public polity or debate in public polity every 50 years. So to that extent, I am asking. It's a work of scholars. It's not a work of lawyers. If you leave it to lawyers, you will again we the people of India borrowed from American Constitution and taken from the French Constitution. So it will be a cut copy paste effort. So we need an original one which should be left to scholars. And of this, which of the Dharma Shastra will appear could be a combination of several ones.
Next one, please. Arvind Narayanan wants to know, they added secularism by way of amendment in the constitution. Could that be abrogated? Will it violate the basic structure of the constitution, the preamble?
Now, it's a typical question in the first semester in law course. Whether the preamble is a part of the basic structure, and if so, can it be amended? Can it be amended to add? Can it be amended to delete? All these things are a question on which there is no clear answer. To me, if it was not there in the original constitution in 49, when we actually finished the constitution on 26th November and adopted it on 26th January 1950, if something was not there, it is not part of the basic structure. That's my personal view. And socialism and secularism was brought in 1975 through the 42nd Amendment. And I would say that is the proof that it was not originally thought of. And as I said, in fact, socialism was sought to be brought in by an amendment, by a resolution by Nehru, which was defeated by people like Ambedkar on 15th November 1948. Having said that, I would answer this way, that they added secularism by way of the amendment to the Constitution. Yes, they did add. Could that be abrogated? It can be abrogated. Will it violate the basic structure of the Constitution, the preamble? The answer is no, because the preamble is not a basic structure, and even if it is, in my view, it can be amended and it will not affront the basic structure of the Constitution.
And viewers, we are going to stop taking questions now. Whatever has come up until the screen now, that will be the last question. And because we need to finish up this quickly, we have a few questions to go through still. VK wants to know who represented the princely states.
Who represented the princely states, meaning where?
In the Constituent Assembly. In the Constituent Assembly.
That's a very difficult question, because people went on adding back and forth on. Several people died. Some people came back in this 2-3 years. A lot of changes. The princely state, by and large, left it to this 200-300 people to do this constitution exercise. And within the 200-300 people, you would find 20-30 people are the most active one. And of which Nehru, Ambedkar, could be a few other guys who are supportive of Nehru or critical of Nehru. These were the guys. So finally, the constitution, if you look at the entire assembly debates, probably 30 people made meaningful contribution. And as I said, it was a rehash of the 1935 Act of British Government of India Act. So there was nothing new in the Constitution. There was nothing original in the Constitution. There was nothing fantastic in the Constitution. That's something that said, oh, it's a brilliant new idea. Nobody has thought about it. It was like, oh, this is from the French. Oh, you took it from this page. Oh, you took it from this book. Okay, come, let us decide whether it should be there or not. So in that way, this Constitution was left to 20-30 people. I don't think so. The princely states were too well represented. And they were having dialogue with people like Patel, who brought around 500 odd princely states that everybody knows. And they were more bothered about joining India, because they were worried about Pakistan coming in, or their own internal revolt and other thing. They want to quickly join the Indian Union. So in that way, princely states were in a way underrepresented.
One other way to look at this whole thing, and I keep saying this again and again, there's a book called In the Shadow of the Great Game by Narinder Singh Sarila, who was the last aide-de-camp, perhaps the only aide-de-camp of Hindu origin to Lord Louis Mountbatten. And he explains in that the Indian political leadership did not know that it was the United States that was the leader of the free world. That had happened in 1943 when Bretton Woods was signed. And we were in 1946, 1947, and for India, the be-all and end-all was Europe. So you see how blinkered the vision was. And so blinkered that when the United States tried to spend a special envoy to meet with Patel and Nehru, that India should not get partitioned. Take my word, America was not for India's partition. Many people today love to hate America, but America had one right. They said, don't do this. And India wouldn't listen. They ignored this person. He was there for months on end trying to persuade India that you should not go, partition yourself. Sometimes it's easy to say that America is always a big boss, but come on, guys, India exactly didn't know what exactly was the world outside of its blinkered vision of Western Europe, the French, the Swiss, and the British. So there are other problems also. The leadership wasn't exactly 360 degrees. Anyway, let's go to the next question, sir. This somebody is hiding himself. Please tell us what must be done to bring about changes in the constitution to ensure this land remains true to culture of the following dharma. Like moksha is a foreign concept to West.
Yeah, even Nehru begins the 1947 15th August tryst with destiny speech saying that the soul of the nation, long suppressed, will ultimately find its utterances, not wholly but substantially. We have all seen the grainy footage in Doordarshan, black and white, where Nehru speaks in chaste Queen's English, where even Queen Elizabeth wouldn't have understood much of it. because it was so English that none of none of it could be understood. Okay, so the point here is, yes, we have to bring what must be done to bring the changes in the constitution. I'm not asking for the changes in the constitution. I'm asking for the change to the constitution itself. That's a subtle difference, that we must change the constitution not by changing the constitution, but bringing a new constitution. And that is the only thing we can do. It must be written with the view that there is a particular ethos in this country, which is germane to this country. The civilizational values are there. It must be done in such a way that the constitution reflects the civilization values, doesn't make a lip service, and it must be done with people who have understanding of the order, like Professor Dharmpal, who has studied Indian polity in close quarters for centuries after centuries. He has done enormous work of taking humongous amount of manuscript, trying to understand, and his wonderful book, Beautiful Tree, is something that all of us must read and try to see how best we can understand the Indian polity as it was practiced, say, 80, 100, 200 years ago. Now, and we can't go back. Let us not romanticize, friends. Let us not think that, again, Gram Rajya, all these villages are republic, all this Gandhian. So, I don't understand what is this Gandhian socialism means. It is some esoteric idea that will take us nowhere. But we have to also understand that we can't be pale carbon copies of the West. We need to have some in-between stuff. We must absorb modernity. We must take to all that the West can give in its good measure. But at the same time, we must also firmly root ourselves to our civilization. It's a very delicate balance. And Aurobindo says this in volume 20 or 21. I don't remember. This is exactly volume 20 or 21. It distinguishes between Japan and India. He says Japan is so ready and assimilative. It takes everything from outside, and because it has the innate ability to absorb things. Whereas India, he says, she will brood, she will think, she will go on, she'll be in a contemplative mood. And then when she moves so fast, so brilliantly, that the whole world cannot stop her. I think we have brooded over our constitution for 75 years. We have let it run. We have seen all its peculiarities, angularities. We have seen that it is how functional it is or how dysfunctional it is. Now is the time that India must wake up. Like Aurobindo says, Maharishi Aurobindo says that India will, once she makes a decision, it is very difficult to stop her. I think time for us to relook at the constitution is now. And all these things will follow. Yeah.
Arvind Narayanan again. Recently, the Kerala High Court asked, I think it is the TDB Devasthanam Board, I think, to consider all sects of people to be appointed.
What he means is Travancore Devasthanam Board.
Travancore Devasthanam Board, that all sects of people be appointed as priests in the Sabarimala temple. Is it not a violation of Article 26 of the Constitution of India? Could Article 17 override it?
Now, since the matters are in the court, let the courts decide. But there is one very disturbing thing that is a fallout of the Constitution. If you strictly follow the Constitution, the questions raised are very clearly embossed. Now, why should the Archbishop of, then the question will be, can the Archbishop of, say, Madras be a Sikh? Why not a Sikh? Why should it be only to the Catholic faith professing Christian? Will the Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee allow a Sunni Muslim to be the chief of what is this?
SGPC, Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee. Yeah.
Now these are, and when it comes to minorities, immediately we say they are protected by Article 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. All those articles come into play. So minorities have to be provided, their culture has to be provided, their language has to be provided, their religion has to be provided, they're protected. All these things are done. But when it comes to Hindus, you immediately say Article 14. You say Article 17 will override Article 26. All this questioning and positioning starts coming out. 26 will override 17 or 17 will override 26. So when it comes to Hindus, all sorts of interpretation by the court is possible. When it comes to minorities, nothing is possible. So this is what worries me. If you are going to say tomorrow that on all religious places, not only we are going to allow men, we are also going to allow women. I have no issues. Then you say this is a civil order. They say that everybody can be appointed tomorrow as some sort of a religious and in all religious institutions. Do it. Now that the court will not do because it will chicken out, because it knows the consequences. But when it comes to Hindu sensibilities, courts have repeatedly been playing with this. And that is one of the culmination of this was 6th December 1992. When the courts refused to hear Ram Janmabhoomi for so many decades. And finally Hindus had to take the laws into their own hand and do it. It may be some of us gloat over it. I feel very sorry. It was a collapse of the constitutional mechanism. You could not provide a solution within the courts. 4 decades you could not do it. But once the Babri Masjid was destroyed, immediately the courts could find some sort of a solution, and they come about and say, okay, this is Hindu land. Now that is the point here, that the courts do not want to deal with the minorities, and if the majority is rule abiding, they thrust all the rule on them. And this is what is going to be the biggest civilizational challenge that the new constitution has to look at.
Well said, sir. Well said. Well said. Next question, please. Stan Judge wants to know, MRV sir, can the Supreme Court say appointment of judges by collegium system is the law of the land?
They have said so. Can they say that? They have said so. 530 odd MPs voted unanimously in the parliament. A bill called NJAC. It was rejected by the Supreme Court consisting of 5 judges. Probably one of them was in the minority and 4 of them voted in favor of abrogating that law or saying that is unconstitutional, saying that collegium system is the law of the land. So the will of the people expressed through the parliament, made through a law, enacted through a law, validly assented by the President of India, was challenged in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has rejected that NJAC mechanism and instead said collegium system is the law of the land. And but we say Socialist Democratic Republic of India, where the law gets the power from the people. No.
Dr. MRV, when near 100% of the elected people vote in a certain direction, can they not override a Supreme Court judgment?
No, the framers of the constitution did not envisage that the judiciary and the legislative will be at loggerheads. They did not fathom that a day would come where judiciary would have to be put under scrutiny and judiciary will become a law unto itself. This is the unfortunate development that did not see the mischief began somewhere in 70s when Indira Gandhi wanted committed judiciary, and then
A.N. Ray
and others. Then of course Justice Kanya and others were there. H.R. Khanna and others stood up, and they paid a very heavy price. Then it meandered in the 80s, and since 90s, then the judiciary got the first whiff of strength. It paid back the executive in the own coin and started putting in this collegium system 1. Then they had collegium system 2, and now we have even the Supreme Court in all its wisdom rejected NJAC. Now, I am not in favor of NJAC either. But NJAC is the will of the people. It doesn't matter whether I like it or Mr. Iyer of PGurus likes it. It is the will of the parliament, and everybody has to bow to the will of the parliament. But they said it is anti-constitutional. It is not in conformity with the constitution. It's unfortunate that the judiciary and the executive and the legislature are in loggerheads. The earlier we find some mechanism to resolve this issue, the better for the Indian democracy.
Next question, please. Raxi Boy wants to know, realistically, is there any chance of India ever becoming a Hindu Rashtra being enshrined in the constitution?
India will never be a theocratic state. India was never a theocratic state. This Hindu Rashtra, it is always a Hindu Rashtra. Please understand. We are a Hindu nation. We are a Hindu majority nation. You may call it by whatever name. We are a Hindu majority nation. Let us be very clear. Enshrined in the constitution, how can it be enshrined in the constitution? We should never be a theocratic state. Except during Ashoka's regime, when Buddhism became the state religion, none of the kings, monarchs who ruled us ever impose their personal faith on the statehood or the state that they ruled. The Cholas were great Shaivites. The Pandyas were great Shaivites. They worshipped Lord Shiva. But you would never see Shaivism or Hinduism becoming a state religion. We had people who allowed various thoughts to flourish, and declaring ourselves as a Hindu Rashtra would be truncating ourselves to something very parochial. On the contrary, we must declare ourselves to be Dharma Rashtra. We should be a Rashtra of Dharma. And Dharma is religious neutral. It is agnostic towards all religion. It has nothing to do with religion. Can you say Bhagavad Gita is Hindu religion, or is it universal? It is universal. The philosophies of Bhagavad Gita are universal. It can appeal to a Christian, Muslim, Hindu, a communist. It can appeal to Kejriwal. It can appeal to Rahul Gandhi. It can appeal to Mr. Modi also. So there is something that is universal. By truncating it to and saying that we should become a Hindu Rashtra, we are trying to box ourselves into a small corner, which I would not advise. Rather, we should have a broader view about the world, that we must be a Dharma Rashtra, and we must say we are a civilizational state. Which means there is
two or three questions left, sir. Request you to keep your answers to 30 seconds. Next question. Next question, please. Raja Raman wants to know, ask MRV, if Constitution gave right of citizens to judgment, like a case should be judged within a time limit, say 1 year.
Right to speedy justice is enshrined in Article 21. Unfortunately, it is in Article 21, never practiced in the courts. My 30 seconds are over, sir.
Next question, please. Chaitanya Takli wants to know, what is the status of Sisodia case? Arresting him will break the backbone of Kejriwal.
See, all this, in fact, I think if I had appeared in PGurus and I told you arrest of Sisodia is not so easy. I don't know whether I gave that interview to you or to somebody else. But my view is Sisodia arrest is not so easy. It has a greater ramification. Of course, the political consequences, if he is arrested, it will break the backbone of Kejriwal, is accepted. But there is a big if, and I don't think so. The government of the day has that much ammunition. Probably they will wait for something closer to the election, then do it now.
Next question, please. VK wants to know, why couldn't Ambedkar realize the clear separation of powers as he studied in America and applied the same in our constitution?
Sir, our constitution has very clear separation of powers. In fact, we have borrowed, if you see, 21st November 1948, there is one Mr. Dev speaking in the Constitution Assembly, and he says that we have separated powers like nobody else has done, and he is right. There is an executive, there is a legislature, there is a judiciary, each one controlling the other. In fact, we were woven a spaghetti bowl there, each one pulling and balancing the other. In fact, it's a brilliant way of balancing. We can't actually find fault with that.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. MRV. I can see that your next session is going to start very soon, and you're getting phone after phone. And sir, thank you so much. I know you were stuck in traffic and you still made it home and joined us, even if it was a few minutes late. And viewers, thank you so much for being patient. Many of you stayed back to listen to my diatribe against what happened in the MCD elections in Delhi. But thank you again for your patience. And we look forward to more such stirring debates. Dr. MRV, you can see the level of questions that you get here. You will never get these questions in Republic. So at least that is my USP. That PGurus' USP is that we allow our guests to be fully put through the ringer. You come out clean and laundered. Thank you so much, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar.